it's a typical issue on these Lincoln Town cars and cars that just have an air ride suspension. After 20 years, if you get to 20 years, the suspensions go out, and then all of a sudden, you know, in the back end they're riding on the ground, and so people park them, and they say, oh well, I'll get around to it someday, and I'll get it fixed. And but then they hear all these rumors about how expensive it is to fix these things, and people say crazy things like, oh, that air ride suspension is going to cost you $2,500 to get fixed, and so that destroys their incentive to ever get around to it. And then they're like, well, what am I going to do with this? They just put it off and put it off. So they sit in yards and driveways and garages all over the country for years. So like a 1993 town car whose suspension went out in 2013, and now it's 2020, so it's been sitting for 7 years in their, you know, in their driveway, and it's like, man, I'd like to just, you know, get this thing out of my hair. They went on to, you know, another car. They just, you know, they just don't want to deal with it, so they don't. And first of all, that crazy rumor about it costing thousands of dollars to get this fixed is total nonsense. It's always been nonsense, and nowadays it's even more nonsense because the manufacturers of the parts realize that there's a big market here, so we're going to produce more of these, and then the prices of these parts went lower and lower as the years passed. And now you can get the airbags for $50. Two of them, both of them. So from there it comes down to, and oftentimes nothing was wrong with the airbags, the compressor went out, and that's where you start running into just a little bit of money on these things. Your compressor's going to cost you between $200 and $300 with a dryer and everything with it. The last one I saw, I think it was on eBay for $260 plus shipping, and they're pretty heavy little parts. You know, but the problem with it being, you know, sitting for 7 years is the fact that now, because they weren't inflated, the airbags are going to be dry rotted. So you're going to have to replace them too. So you're looking at, you know, minimum $300 into it, and then sometimes the solenoids are bad. They connect to the top of the airbags. It starts nickel and diming you a little bit, but $2,500 or even $2,000. I mean, that's just crazy. It's not true. You can get out of this, depending on what's wrong, anywhere between $50 and $500 tops. So that leads into a whole different subject, which I'll get into in a second. The shocks on the back of the car are made to work with air ride suspension. So if you convert it over to springs, you're gonna have to change the shocks too, or it's just not gonna ride right, and it's probably gonna bounce a little more than it's supposed to. I mean, it's people think this is real hard because they're dealing with the weight of this car, which is heavy, and you have to put it on jack stands, or, you know, independently jack up the frame of the car with the actual rear end of the car and the suspension. So I mean, it can be dangerous if you really just have no clue what you're doing. You could wind up hurting yourself. So that's a disclaimer. If you hurt yourself, I've got nothing to do with, you know, your ignorance here. I'll show you exactly how to do it. It's really not that hard. Just don't be an idiot about it. And if you don't don't have jack stands, go out and buy them now because you're going to need them. Had a lot of people change these cars over to coil springs, which makes sense if your compressor's bad, because the compressor is a little bit pricey at between $200 and $300. If you buy coil springs and just go manual shocks, you're gonna have to buy shocks too, because the shocks that came with the car are made to be used with the air ride suspension. So, a lot of people change, take the airbags out and put springs in there, but they don't do the shocks, and the car just doesn't ride the way it's capable of riding. It's a little too bouncy. See, the issue with these cars is because they've been sitting for the last 6, 7, 8 years, they're not going to have a whole lot of miles on them. And a lot of times you can get them with under 100,000 and down to like 60,000, 70,000 miles on it when the suspension went out. Other times, there's people out there that will literally pay you to get the thing out of their driveway. There's horror cases, like the husband was working on it, but then he died, and it's been sitting ever since, and the widow just doesn't want to look at it anymore and just wants it the hell out of her life. So, but then you have times when you don't even want what they're trying to give you. It's like, here, take it for free, here's the keys. But if it has a blown engine, a blown transmission, the paint is shot, and the suspension is the least of your problems. And unless you're going to use it for a parts car, and you have a place to put a parts car, a lot of times you don't want it. It just becomes a burden. So you're looking for one in good shape with a blown suspension, and that's pretty much your limit in your budget. It's going to have a bad battery, and the gas is going to, you don't want to run any gas through it that's been sitting there for years. It's going to need an oil change. It's probably going to need a little bit of electrical work. The power windows are liable not to work. I have another video on how to fix the motors and the door for power windows. It's really easy. Naturally you want to get out with the minimum. And don't forget to check the sunroof, because they can be pricey to fix, or moonroof, whatever it is. The glass is going to be expensive in this car, so you want to make sure the windshield's not cracked. You get the gist of it. You're just trying to flip it. You don't want to rebuild the whole damn thing. So all these little issues, they just get people to procrastinate on doing this themselves, and they just avoid it, and the car becomes a product of neglect. Something that could be beautiful, could run great, and all that's wrong with it is a bad suspension system, which can be fixed for relatively cheap. With that all said, if you're an inherent entrepreneur and you like working on cars, you can pick up these town cars all day for $1,000. They're in yards all across America, and all you have to do is pull into the driveway and say, hey, do you want to sell that town car? Just get it out of your hair. I see it has suspension issues. And so there's you know, they're sitting there debating, yeah, I'd really like to get this thing out of my hair. You know, I'm never going to work on it. I know, you know, I'm just never going to get around to it. So, yeah, what do you want to give me for it? And then don't, you know, answer that question. And it's, a lot of times you can get them for like $1,000 that are in good shape. Start out even lower than that. Go from $800, and they're sitting there thinking, oh, that's $800 I didn't have yesterday. And now I can, you know, back in and out of my driveway. That, you know, it's just, yeah, just get this stupid thing out of my hair. And that's it. And so let's say you get one, you get a 2003 or 4 for $1,000. You put it, you fix the suspension, and suddenly the car is worth like $2,300 or $2,400. So you can make $1,000 off each car. And if you can sell one a week and just keep on picking them up and keep on fixing the suspensions and keep on selling them, you know, you're making like $1,000 a week. And you know, that's not get rich money, but that's not a bad living either. I mean, you're talking, you know, 50 grand a year. Doing something you like to do. It's not really hard to do. And you get to stay home with your kids and, you know, live your life. The problem you're going to run into with that is when the car, because it's been sitting so long, you know, it might nickel and dime you to death. So you might need a battery, and that's going to cost you $150. So there's $150 off that $1,000 profit, and now you're down to $850, and then, well, you need the brakes, and that's going to cost you another $50, and, you know, I mean, it can nickel and dime you down to just breaking even. So that's what you need to look over before you make, you know, things like the brakes and the tires and the battery, and are the lines dry rotted from sitting so long, and what seriously needs to be fixed on this car, and you know, how much is it going to cost you total? Is this project even worth messing with? But you better get them soon, because once they start sitting for 8 or 9 years, then you start running into all kinds of problems, not from any kind of physical abuse, but just from, you know, sitting in the sun, and the paint, you know, the paint is shot, and now you know, you're not making anything. So, yeah. So the big issues to look out for before you ever plunk down a nickel for one of these cars. The engine, of course. Is the engine good? Are there any knocks? Just forget about the whole thing. If the engine doesn't sound healthy, if it's smoking, just walk away. Just say, never mind. Just go off to the next one. The drivetrain, and particularly the transmission, these are all things that are going to cost you a fortune, and you're going to wind up losing money on the car. Transmission in the rear end, I mean, is the car pulling right? Is anything slipping? Paint, a lot of times the body will be fine, but the actual paint is faded because it's, you know, it's been sitting in the sun, and the clear coat is peeling, or it has, you know, it's been sitting under a tree, and sap's been, you know, baking on it for years. Yeah, the body and paint can wind up costing you a fortune. The good thing about that is, on these town cars, is they put high quality paint on it, and they put more coats of paint on it, and the clear coat is good. So, I mean, can it be cleaned up? Are there any major dents on it? And dents are a big turn off to any potential buyer. So it's going to be hard to sell if there's any dents on it. It's sellable, but it's just, you're going to have to work for it, and the whole object is not to work for it, and to keep turning over cars and keep making, you know, that $1,000. car. The interior is the interior shot. This is a big, I mean, you can sell a car whose interior is shot, but this is going to be hard, and it turns off buyers left and right, and they need to feel like kings when they're sitting in the car, and that's what these cars were made for. And they were high luxury cars, and they're made to make the driver feel like king shit as he's driving down the road. The sunroof or moonroof, does it have one, and is it working? Believe it or not, the switches for these things are ridiculously expensive, and you can get them in junkyards all day long, which is what you're going to have to do. The switch for it was a really cheap switch they put on this car, and they break real easy. But that switch is pricey. It's like $200 some odd dollars for a stupid little plastic switch with a couple of wires coming out of it. They go out, and I don't know why they're so pricey, but they are. So that can nickel and dime you to death. The gas in the car, how long has it been sitting in there? Gas breaks down after about 9 or 10 months, and you wind up with a bunch of thick tar-like stuff in your gas tank. The last thing you want to do is pump that through, the carburation system and the fuel injectors, and it's going to smoke. Everything's going to get clogged up, and then you're going to have a mess on your hands. So it's best to carry around a gas can with 100% gas in it, and no ethanol. And see, the issue there is you're going to have to, before you even start the car, you're going to have to drain the old gas out of the gas tank and try to get as much gas out of the gas lines that's in there, because that too is going to be all gumped up. It's not hard, but it's it's just kind of like a pain in the ass that you have to deal with. But you really, truly, you don't want to start a car that's had the same gas in the gas tank for the past couple of years. You're not going to like the result. Once you do get it started, you're going to have to carry either battery around, or you're going to have to jump all these cars off with your car, just to, find out what the engine sounds like and if the transmission's working right. Before you go through all this, you should ask the potential seller, what's the bottom line I'll take just to get this car out of their driveway. They might spout off $500, and if they do, don't get all gleeful yet. If they do, come out with $500 or even lower than that, don't try to nickel and dime them down to free or whatever. If the body and paint is okay, and the engine's okay, and the transmission's okay, and the interior's okay, you're not going to get lower than $500. So another big thing is tires. Everybody knows tires are not cheap. If you want to go with brand new ones, sometimes you can get okay tires that are used, but I don't know. It depends. If you can get decent tires that are used for like $30 or $40, and your intention is to turn it over, go ahead and do it. The issue is getting decent ones. That's that's the problem. Sometimes these used tire places, they sell you tires with 2 weeks left on them. Is anything leaking? Once you get it started, you get it, you have the gas in it, the battery's charged up and jumped off or whatever. Is anything leaking? It's another big problem with when a car sits this long. Air lines, brake lines and stuff, they start dry rotting and gas lines, and they start leaking. So, yeah, better run for 5 or 10 minutes and then take a good look under the car, see if anything's leaking. And, take it for a spin around the block and see if that transmission's slipping. If it is, you're going to have a big, hefty cost on this. These transmissions are not cheap to get fixed. Is the engine smoking? Is the engine knocking or pinging? Overall, how is the car running? And how much are you going to have to put into it to get it running right if it's not running good? So all these things are playing on your decision to go for it or not. Is it a good investment or is it not a good investment? But again, these things, they pile up on the potential seller, and it's just like, it just becomes too much of a hassle for them to deal with, and that's why they want to get rid of it. So, you can't be too strong here, but you can't be stupid about it either. You don't want to buy a town car, whose engine has 300,000 miles on it, and, the engine's shot, the transmission's shot, everything's shot. It's just, you're going to lose money on it. Don't slum, not with these cars, because a blown engine's going to cost you more than you're going to wind up selling the car for. It's just not going to be worth the aggravation. And the same with the transmission. So even if the person wants to give the car away, a lot of times it's not worth the aggravation. What you're looking for are cars in good shape that the wife is sick of looking at, and just wants to get, wants the husband to get it out of her damn hair so she can enjoy her driveway again. You're gonna have to change the battery unless you run into a miracle where somebody already changed the battery. You're gonna have to change the oil, and the first thing you want to do before you ever start it is change the gas. Now you could hook up, make like a portable gas tank with a fuel pump on it and just disconnect gas line that's on there and just use your own system, which would be a lot easier than draining all the gas out and stuff. But that's probably going to come later for you if you decide you want to get into this venture. So that's the three things: the gas, the oil, and the battery. They're gimmies, but the most you want to put out for any one issue is the battery. It's going to be $150. So if you need an air ride suspension for $350 and you need a battery for $150, that's probably minimum that you're going to spend, and then $1,000 for the car, so you got $1,500 into it, and the profit that you're shooting for is $1,000. So you got to ask $2,500 for the car, and that's the minimum that you're going to take on the car. You might want to ask 28, and then be willing to adjust down to, 25. But I can't teach you how to negotiate in a YouTube video. You either have this or you don't. If that's your goal, to spend a week working on it, and to get $1,000 more than you put into it. If you think your time is worth $1,000 a week, and you're talking a full-time job at $40 a week, then that's what you're aiming for. Chances are real good that you're going to go a little over budget, and you're not going to get every nickel you want for the car. So sometimes you might have to settle for $700 or $800 or $900. That's up to you. Now, if you like this idea and you already have a full-time job and you're happy with that, you can hire somebody to do this and work full-time, give them a full-time job, and just split the profit 50-50. So if you make $800, he made $400. If you make $1,000, he made, or she made $500. And it's not the best paying job in the world, but it's not the worst either. And these mechanics, well, see, the problem is finding somebody dependable and willing to, it's more like a partnership than it is a job. And there's a lot of people working fast food that would love this job, and if they have mechanical aptitude, you can teach them how to do it. It shouldn't be too big of an issue. So, you play with it and find out what works for you, and if this venture is even worth it for you, and if it is, then go for it, amigo. If the paint is shot, you really don't want to mess with it. And there's variables there, but most often, you just want to pass on it, because you don't want to put a half-ass paint job on a car like this. The body and the paint is probably the number one selling point for the car. So if you don't have that, you're going to have a lot of problems selling it. You're not going to feel right about it if it looks like hell. These body men and these paint shops, they know what their time is worth, and they're not cheap. So to put, this is a luxury car in the 90s, and to put, it begs for a luxury paint job. If you don't think you can get the paint back in shape by buffing it and waxing it and all that stuff, forget about it. Now, on the other hand, if you're an expert, body guy yourself, and you have your own paint booth, which might be an investment down the road for you if you don't have that, because it opens up, doorways of new options. If you're equipped with all that, and you have a spray booth and all, it's only going to cost you $100 to do it yourself and to put, a quality paint job on it. Then sure costs good. So, it goes on and on. I could give you scenarios all day long. You might be an expert transmission guy, so if the transmission is blown, it's no big deal to you. But if you're not an expert transmission guy and you got to pay somebody $1,500 to rebuild it, you're not going to make anything on the car. There's a good chance that you're sitting there thinking I could get a whole lot more for these cars than the numbers I'm talking about. because you were surfing the internet and you saw, one for sale for $10,000. The chances are real good that was from a car dealer. And I don't want to get real political about this, but these people on the internet can ask anything they want to ask. It doesn't mean they're selling them. And your agenda is to turn this into a business and turn these over. And to give people a fair price, and that will have other people coming to you for the same deal. You can go ahead and get greedy and try to make $3,000 a week. But I'm telling you, you're doing it the hard way, and the cars are going to sit, and before you know it, you're going to have 20 town cars that you can't sell, sitting wherever you're doing this. Car dealers, let's face it, they're some of the shadiest people on the face of the earth. So you walk in, let's give them the benefit of the doubt, and then say they have a 92 town car there for $5,000, and they're hoping you walk on a lot and say, I'll give you $3,000 for it, and they're going to take it because, that's what the car was worth to begin with, and that's all they wanted anyway. They just want to get you onto the lot, and you're going to think you got a great deal. And, if you can get them down from $5,000 to $3,000, you didn't get a bad deal. But they're working on the issue that they can finance people, or the bank can, whatever they're doing. So you don't have a whole lot of money, but you want a car, and you can't afford a $10,000 car, so there's a $5,000 car, and, it's better than no car at all. This is how they get you. You want to give people a good car at a fair price, and you want to do it continually, week after week after week. You can do it any way you want, but this is what I'm recommending you do. So, with all that said, forget about selling cars on the internet, and forget about buying cars on the internet. It's not what you want. I will show you in a coming video how to find sellers and how to find buyers real quick, and then they're guaranteed. A lot of them don't even have internet. They're, wouldn't even know where to begin on the internet. In the 80s, they were real boxy, and it was hard to tell a town car from like a Continental or a Cadillac. And then they started developing their own kind of unique look, and they got a little more aerodynamic, where they started putting in that rounded grille. And then when the turn of the century came, the turn of the millennium, they got even more aerodynamic and more sporty. And they got even better on gas. So it's not hard to tell that the 80s, real boxy, humongous cars. In the 90s, they were still big, but not quite as boxy. And then when 2000 rolls around, it was still overkill, but they tried to get sporty with them, and it kind of defeated the actual, personality of the car. So they stopped selling them, and they were asking too much for them. And rich people said, "Look, I like spending money, but I don't like being stupid." That was that. And a lot of people put that air ride suspension into the category of totally unnecessary. But rich people love their little toys, the trunk latches automatically. You don't have to push down. It is totally, completely unnecessary stuff. just the problem, you know, when you go to fix one of these things, is it could be this, it could be the solenoid, it could be the computer itself, it could be the compressor, it could be the air, and yeah, so, I mean, they're great when they work right, but when they go out, it can be a nightmare. You wind up paying way more money than is worth paying. Taking a little break. The roof on this thing, I didn't save it for last, I just kind of avoided it because the moonroof, the switch is broke, and I was closing it, and there was about an inch left before it was all the way closed and the switch broke. So I have to figure out a way to clean the roof without getting a bunch of water in the interior of the car. And this whole thing that you just saw in this video of me doing what I was doing is just the pre-wash. Just getting the big stuff off before it does any more damage than it's already done. Now I'll start working on the suspension, the moonroof, and you know, just little nitpicky things that's wrong with it, the windshield wiper motor. I gotta get new tires, and I gotta clean the wheels up. And then the last thing I'll do when all that's done is detail. And I mean really detail it. So I'm going over the whole body one more time in detail. Every speck of everything, every scratch, I'll high-speed buff any scratches out. And then just put it up for sale. And call it a day. This car will not take long to sell. It's a Cartier. Cartier is the proper name. Cartier. It's a Cartier. Yeah. It's a great car. It runs great. Yeah, it's another thing I need to do is change oil. Probably should change the transmission fluid too. Probably want to back flush the cooling system. Put no antifreeze in there. Stuff like that, you know. Just kind of like no-brainer mechanical stuff. And then she's ready. Thank you for tuning in to the first step in flipping a Lincoln Town car. We got this.